Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm Donald Grodoff, family coach with FamilyOCD.com and FocusedHealthyFamily.com. In the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast series, I delve into the hidden characteristics of OCD, anxiety, and anxiety disorders. The things that most people don't see, that are behind closed doors and shut within the mind about anxiety. My goal with these podcasts is to bring about awareness of obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD. Understand that I am not a doctor, therapist, or counselor, and the content, information, resources, and ideas that are talked about and brought up here in these podcasts are things that I have used, discovered, or have been recommended to me, and I always recommend to seek additional professional help in finding solutions for yourself. Thank you for listening and enjoy the podcast. This podcast was recorded on May 12th, 2017. This is podcast number 7, called the Enhancing the Sponge Years. Last podcast we talked about the sponge years. You know, most people say sponge years are from 0 to 3. I say it goes a lot longer than that. In fact, I believe it goes from about 0 to 20. And I say that because I believe the most absorbent time of the sponge years is from about 0 to 5 or 0 to 8. And then what happens with that sponge is it just kind of dries up or gets filtered more, especially during the teen years. But it's still, as a child and as a teen, they are still taking in things from the environment. You know, it changes as they get into the teens. They start taking from school or from peers or from, friends, from teachers, etc. It's not all from the parents. But they still are taking things in and absorbing things in. So I don't think it really stops. It just changes its texture and the way it's being taken in. So what I wanted to talk about in this podcast is how we can enhance those sponge years, especially the very earliest sponge years, those 0 to 5 range time. And we can even do that, and I say we, women especially can do that during pregnancy. And one of the best ways is through nutritional factors. The diet that a woman goes through in the pregnancy years is probably one of the most important diets they'll ever need to take in. And that's when they're going to need to take in proteins to help build the cellular the neural pathways of the brain. And they're going to need to make sure they're taking in the right foods because those things are being filtered over to the baby. And it is a responsibility, but it's an important responsibility that can make a world of difference in the development of any child. Because as I will talk about probably in the future here, because I hope to actually have some nutritionalists interviewed. I have a doctor that I work with who is a pediatric integrative doctor. She works both the medical world and the integrative or alternative world. Her name's Dr. Sheila Kilbane. I hope to at some point, I've already talked to her about it, is to have her on and interview her about how she does her work. And a lot of that work is through diet and how important it is to that. One of the other things that a pregnant mom can do that I think is vitally important is breastfeeding. And it's really weird, I know, for a man to be talking about this, but my wife was a La Leche League leader and believed very strongly in breastfeeding and how important it is for the immune system of the baby, for the bondingness of the baby with the mother, for the developmental stages of the baby. That breast milk cannot be matched by formula at all. I mean, they try, and they don't. I don't know if I'd say they even come close to it, because it has such things in it that can't be duplicated. Maybe someday they will, but I really doubt that. And why not? It's a natural way. It's a beautiful way of bonding with the child. And it makes things easier for myself as the male, as the father. It made it easier. I didn't have to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and warm bottles up or get bottles out to do it. And for my wife, I think it made it easier for the fact that, she could roll over and give that baby her breast and it would be done. So I think it's very important, and as much that I'm a male, I still promote breastfeeding. And not in a perverted way, not for that any kind of perverted means, but for the beauty of it and the health of it, the nutrition of it. All of that is so important, and I don't think people realize it. And I think these companies that make formula tend to downplay it and try to work against it. Anyway, I could talk probably a long time on that, and I could get my wife to talk a long time, and I might do that. Another one is massage, both for the mother, and then when the baby's born, there can actually be infant massage, which can be really good. And there's a lady in the field called Tiffany, her name is actually Tiffany Field, who is they call as a pioneer in the science of touch. And here's kind of what she says. I'm going to quote from her website, which I hope to have on the site for you to find. She says, since that initial study, so she's done studies on massage. She says, since that initial study, she has conducted numerous experiments involving massage therapy that has helped corroborate that message that therapy performed by legitimate massage therapists enhances attentiveness, alleviate depression, reduce pain, lower stress hormones, and improve immune functions. And she studied everyone from babies to adolescents to elderly. And like I said, I'll have that reference hopefully up on my site. That's one thing I have to do as I put this up. And it really plays with bonding for the mother. And the father can have some same effects through massage and touch. They always talk about, we talked about breastfeeding, and that's a strong bond for the mother. The father has ways of bonding too. I used to bond with my kids on the changing table, having fun, playing games, peekaboos, and dancing, and doing all kinds of stuff. So, the breastfeeding can maybe take away that bond of feeding from the father, but there's so many other ways to do it. Another thing is to respond to the child when they cry. Do not let them cry it out. There is a book out there, and right at the moment I don't have it written down here, and I can't think of it right now, but I'll probably put it up on the site. It's terrible. It talks about letting the child cry it out. A baby, needs to know that they're loved. They need to know safety and comfort of always knowing that the parent is there for them. And I think this is one thing that we've developed as a society is that if we coddle that baby too much or hold that baby too much, it's going to be working against that baby's independence later on. And it's completely the opposite. The more you hold the baby, the more that baby feels confident and safe and knows that you're there when they're small, develops independence when they're older in their life. And I've seen this with my own kids, and I've seen it with other kids. They become more independent by the fact that they were taken care of and responded to when they had needs. And crying is a need. And letting them cry it out tells that baby that they can't count on that support of that parent. And I think that's terrible. I think that a child should be responded to whenever they cry. They should be held and touched whenever they need it, and shown that they're loved, shown that they're safe, shown that the parent is there for them, and there's a bond between them. And that leads to my next one. It talks about closeness, attention, love, feelings of safety. And that's what I just talked about. It equals independence later. When that baby is held, it's shown comfort, it's taken care of when it cries, because it has no way else to be able to tell you what's going on but to cry or giggle or laugh. It doesn't talk, so the baby can't tell you, hey, I need food, or hey, my diaper's full, or hey, I just want you here. I feel scared. That's the way it shows. Another way to enhance the sponge years, reading to your child, giving them an early appreciation for books, including a lot of picture books. So they, through the picture books and through your words, they're putting together words. They're putting together the sounds and the words and everything. And we have read to every child of ours. And we have given the opportunity for our child to want to read and not push that on them. I tell a little bit of a story. My oldest son, who is at this present moment is 19 years old, but when he was about 3.5 years old, he started to read, and we did it by street signs. We would take walks, and he would read the caution signs or the stop sign, and we would always say it and spell it, and so he started learning how to spell based on street signs. Railroad signs he'd call choo-choo choo-choo signs and things like that. And he took on very early in life the ability to read. He really loved it. I think initially it was mostly memorizing words versus really learning them, but that came as he did more reading. He learned to understand the words and to get good comprehension of the words as he did. So he was reading at, like I say, around 3.5, 4 years old. So when my daughter came 4 years later, and when she turned about 3.5. I started saying, I think we need to teach her how to read. I mean, look at my oldest son. I'd say to my wife, we need to teach her because look what he did. And my wife, bless her heart, she was great. She knew how to do this. She said, no, I don't want to push her on it. I want her to come about and want to read. And of course, I was a little bit of the devil's advocate and would try to go in there and teach her to read. And I didn't do that very much, but because I just thought, well, still think we need to teach her. I'm still, I think, sometimes very old school when it comes to that. But what happened was we did it my wife's way, which was the best way. And at about 5.5, my daughter just picked up books and started to read and loved to read because she wanted to read. That's kind of how we do most of our teaching, is by letting them come to it and want to do it and have it in their passion to do it. And so they read. So I recommend reading to kids very early in life. In fact, I was reading to them in the womb. And I think there's nothing wrong with it. I think there's something because the baby recognizes voices then, knows comfort then, all of that. So I definitely recommend reading to a child early and always. We read every night to our children. Playing games with children. Kids learn through play. Kids enhance their knowledge through play. Throughout their childhood, it's one of the best ways to play. Playtime is learn time for kids. It teaches them all kinds of things. And so it's important not to take that out. Because I find a lot of parents that are concerned at 2 and 3 years old that they're not teaching their kids enough stuff. That they're not getting them in front of, the words and the books and teaching them how to do things. Whereas if they would relax and let play be the learning process, I think they would find that the child will learn better and faster through that. Now, as I was talking about earlier, for dads, like I said, the breastfeeding thing takes away the feeding, not necessarily, I mean, initially, it takes away the feeding opportunity. Not that we still didn't do a bottle or two of breast milk, where we would pump into a bottle and I could feed that way. So there is that opportunity. So I shouldn't, as I said before, it really doesn't take that opportunity away necessarily. But there are other ways to bond. Like I said, the diaper changing time, singing, talking, playing, getting down to their level and getting on the floor with them and playing. The father can bond with them just as much. Reading and rocking them to sleep once in a while. Doing things like that can play well for the father to enhance their sponge years too. Getting that good impression of a dad and what a dad means can play wonderfully with a kid's life. Knowing they have a father, knowing the father's there, knowing the father can love and comfort and teach or whatever. I shouldn't say teach because I just talked about that. But, having a father in their life is very important. And getting to know him in the sponge years is vitally important. And one thing I talk about, part of enhancing, is turn the darn phone off. Turn the computer off, turn the laptop off, turn the tablet off. Because one of the things that used to really irritate me was, now when my oldest son was born, we did have him in back then they used to call it Mother's Morning Out. It was like a 3 or 4 hour program, 3 days or 2 days a week. And so we had him in that program. So at that time I was also starting a business, so I was working those times when he was in that Mother's Morning program. And what used to really irritate me, I left my phone at home most of the time when I took him to the school, I'll say. And so I would really be very attentive to him. I would talk to him, and talk about the day and talk about things and get whatever was exciting to him. When I'd get there at school, I'd be walking him into school and I'd see these parents with the phone clenched against the shoulder talking to somebody. And I remember this one time very vividly. I almost said something to the person because they talked all the way up to the door. They said, "Hey, I need to hold on a minute. Hey, bye, kid," and kissed, put him back on the phone, and walked away. And I thought, how is that the way to approach a child? Give them that kind of attention? And it just, I want people to think about those few minutes, those 20 minutes even, or a half hour to get them to the school or to the place they're going, is a perfect time to bond. It is a perfect time to add something to those sponge years. The perfect time to get engaged with them. What is 20 minutes out of your day? And think about this. What if something happens? I'm going to throw a little guilt out there, but what if something happens to that child and you don't ever see them again? Think about how you've addressed them to leave, or something happens to you. Get outside and get in the dirt. Another part that one of the things that I do, I'm even doing with my children, and I encourage my clients to do as I work with them, is to get those kids out barefoot out into the yard, get in touch with the earth for a lot of reasons. One, they really need to get the germs and get the dirt to help build their immune system up. That's vitally important because they need the germs, they need the bacteria, they need the dirt to be able to let the immune system see it and be able to learn how to deal with it, learn how to overcome any problems. They need to get sick once in a while to be able to get the immune system built up to be able to resist those kind of things. Plus, one of the things, the earth has a really good energy, and I want to say, this pediatric doctor I worked with told me one time about the ions that the earth puts out. They're the opposite of what we, a lot of opposite of what we produce ourselves. I think we produce positive ions. I'm not positive about that, but it's either positive or negative, and the Earth has the opposite. And we sometimes produce too much of what we have, and the Earth's energy and the Earth's fire helps to balance that out. But we need to touch the Earth. We need to invigorate ourselves into the Earth. I take patients out, our clients out, and them take their socks off and shoes off, and we go and we envision the roots going down into the earth and pulling that energy back up. And I've seen some pretty dramatic effects by that. And so I think it's important that we get kids back outside. We just tend to be fearful of what's going on out in the world, but at least get out there with you and get them in, digging, playing in a sandbox, getting their hands and feet into the earth and into these natural things. Listening is a huge part. All of these, I say, they're huge. And listening to me is very big. I just told that story of the person with the phone leading up to the daycare, or the mother's morning out program, and not listening to what the child. And it's a tough thing because it's hard. Kids can babble on. They can say things over and over till you want to explode sometimes. But I do try to put my ear to them and really get down on their level and talk to them. Not patronize them, not push them off. Now, there are times when I have to learn how to say, like if I am in the middle of something and right at that moment I can't, I'm going to say, the thoughts that you have or what you're trying to tell me is very important that I want to hear. But right now my mind is not there to be able to listen fully. Can you write it down for me, or can we talk in a few more minutes about it or something like that? I try to really be respectful. Well, that's another thing that my wife has taught me in doing this, is the idea of respect for these little people, that we have to treat them with respect. And we tend to be a society of, I'm the parent, you're the child, you are to listen to me, better to be heard, or now I can't think of this saying, but I'm the one that should be the one talking as way, and you should shut up and listen kind of way. And I that is just not very good. I think respectfulness to children should be very important. And I think that's the way you gain respect from them. And it should be expected that they respect you. So listening is a beautiful way of being able to gain respect for them. And there's a process I use that if you want to know more about it, it's called mirroring. And it is a process which works very well to be able to really truly listen and let the other person know they've been heard. So let me know if you'd like to hear more about that. And then probably the last thing, well, not quite, one more thing after this, but this is something that I think is very important, is going with the flow, going with their flow. If they want to play hide and seek, or if they want to mush their hands in grapes, or play with mud, maybe you can go with the flow and let go of a schedule. Let go of structure for a little while. Let go of your preconditioned ideas about how they should learn, or how they should play, or how they should do anything, and be with them where they are. If it means acting goofy, act goofy. It's having fun. And I think, it's also, and this is where I'd say, it's important to teach by example too. The example that you can get down to their level. The example that you can be respectful. The example that you can listen. Be the example that you want them to be. And it's hard to do. Oh my gosh. And I am not the greatest at this. I think I learn every day. I still work with my 8-year-old, and I have to learn every day to just to stop, take a breath, and say, okay, in the scheme of things, is it more important for me to do this or that? So it's really trying to go with their flow. If they want to do something, with my own scenario, sometimes there's things that my son does that I just don't really feel like doing. But sometimes I'll just say, that's something I really don't want to do right now. But I try more and more to say, you know what, I'll do it anyway because you want to do it. I want to be there and do it with you. So it can be difficult, but so the very last part of it is just enjoy, have fun, let go of the preconceived ideas of what a parent is. Not that you can't be a parent, not that you can't, have some discipline, and I don't mean spanking discipline. I just mean, some structure to your life and to how you do things, but to do it respectfully, to know that they're people too. And the more you respect them, the more they will respect you, the more that you keep them safe and keep them hugged and held and comforted when they need comfort as a very young child, the more they will actually be independent. And that's what you want. You want children that are able to step out into the world and do things on their own, always with you in the background and for support. So thank you, and I hope this has helped you to understand how to enhance your child, how to make those sponge years even better. Thank you. This concludes this podcast. Please remember to leave comments for me because that really helps me to understand what you're looking for and helps give me fodder for the next possible podcast. Also, I'd love to hear your invisible wheelchair story if you're willing to share it. If you are, feel free to go to invisiblewheelchair.com and click on Tell Your Story. Now, if you've heard these things and you feel like you need further assistance or some help in what you're going through, and you want to spend some time with me working through those issues, then feel free to book a session at focusedhealthyfamily.com or familyocd.com, or simply call me at 704-562-1630. Finally, don't forget there is a tap-in recording following this podcast you may want to take advantage of. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast and will join me for the next one. Remember, keep tapping, talking, and transcending your life into new heights. Thank you, and have a great day.